Before marriage, he was a different man, or so it seemed. And that one sentence is the reason you clicked on this message today. So stay with me, because by the end of this hour, you are going to understand something about your own marriage, or someone you love's marriage, that you have never been able to put into words before. And the last part of this message will change how you see everything that came before it. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you are listening from right now, what city, what country, because I want you to know that wherever you are, someone else watching this with you right now has felt exactly what you have felt, and you are not as alone in this pain as you think you are. I want you to sit with me for the next hour the way you would sit with a brother or a sister who has nothing else to do but listen to you. Not a crowd, not a classroom, just you and me here today, wherever you are, in your car, in your kitchen, lying in bed unable to sleep because your mind will not stop replaying the same question. The question that brought you here: why did he change? Why was he soft before and hard now? Why did the man who used to text good morning every single day become a man who barely looks up from his phone when you walk into the room? If that question has been living in your chest for months, maybe years, I need you to know something before we go any further. You are not imagining it. You are not being too sensitive. And you are not the only one. There are people listening to this right now in homes where the lights are off and the husband is asleep in the next room and the wife is sitting alone with her phone searching for answers at midnight because daylight is too busy and too loud for this kind of grief. If that is you right now, I see you, and this hour is for you. But I also want to be honest with you before we begin, because I am not here to make you angry at the man you married. I am not here to build a case against him. Some of what we cover today is going to be uncomfortable, not because it blames him, but because it is going to ask you to look at the full picture, the picture that includes responsibility, pressure, family, ego, and the slow erosion of effort that happens in every long relationship if both people are not careful. So if you came here today wanting permission to be angry, I cannot give you that. But if you came here wanting to understand, truly understand what happens to a man between the day he proposes and the years that follow, then you have come to the right place. And I promise you, what you are doing wrong without realizing it and what he is doing wrong without realizing it, both will become clear before we are done. Let me start with the line that brought you here. Before marriage, he used to talk for hours. After marriage, even a few minutes feel heavy for him. Read that again. Sit with it. Because inside that one sentence is an entire world of pain that so many people are too embarrassed to say out loud. Before marriage, he noticed the smallest things. The way your voice changed when you were tired. The day you mentioned just once that you liked a certain flower and he remembered it for months. He replied to your messages within minutes. He made promises, soft ones, the kind that make a heart feel safe. I will always take care of you. I will never let you feel alone. You make me want to be a better man. He showed you affection without being asked. He listened to your feelings like they were the most important news of his day. And somewhere in that season, you let your guard down. Because why wouldn't you? He had earned it. And then marriage happened. And slowly, so slowly that you almost cannot pinpoint the exact day it started, something shifted. He became busy. Not just busy with work, but busy in a way that excluded you. He became irritated over small things that never used to bother him. He stopped noticing. He stopped asking. He started taking your presence the way you take air, assuming it will always be there, never thanking it for keeping you alive. And one day you looked at him across the room and a thought crossed your mind that frightened you. Who is this man? Where did the other one go? So here is the question I want you to actually sit with, not rush past. Why does this happen? Is the love before marriage fake? Is it performance? Or is there something deeper happening here? Something almost nobody explains to you before you sign that contract and say those words in front of witnesses. Stay with me, because this next part will change how you see every single memory you have of the man you married. I want to be clear about something before we go further, because balance matters to me more than going viral with a one-sided story. Many husbands are good. Many husbands are responsible, loving, and trying their best with tools they were never taught how to use. This message is not a courtroom built to convict every man who has ever changed after marriage. This message is for the home where a wife lies awake, wondering why the man who once cared so deeply has become cold, distracted, or emotionally far away, even while his body sleeps right next to her. If that is your home, keep listening. And if you are a husband watching this, do not look away either, because there is a part of this hour built just for you, and it might be the most important part you hear all year. Here is the first truth, and it is one that most people never hear until they are already years deep into a marriage that confuses them. Marriage does not always change a person. Marriage reveals a person. Read that again. It does not create the character. It removes the curtain that was hiding it. Before marriage, almost everyone shows you their best version. Think about it honestly. Before marriage, people dress a little better for each other. They speak a little more softly. They try a little harder. They give more attention, because attention is currency in courtship, and everyone spends generously when they are still trying to win something. They hide their anger because anger is unattractive to someone you are trying to impress. They hide their laziness because laziness does not look romantic on a first date or a 10th one. They control their ego because ego in those early days threatens the very thing they are chasing. They make extra effort, deliberate effort, conscious effort, because the goal in front of them, marriage, has not yet been achieved. But here is what nobody tells you at the wedding. After marriage, daily life begins. And daily life does not care how romantic your love story was. Bills come whether you are ready for them or not. Family expectations arrive at your door, sometimes literally. Responsibilities multiply faster than either of you expected. Household issues that never existed in dating, who washes what, who manages what, who decides what, now have to be negotiated every single day. Financial pressure creeps in quietly and then loudly. Mood swings that were once hidden behind good behavior now have nowhere to hide because you live in the same four walls. And slowly, weakness after weakness, the parts of a person that courtship successfully concealed start to become visible. Here is a line I want you to remember long after this message ends. Before marriage, love is often tested by words. After marriage, love is tested by patience, responsibility, and character. Anyone can say beautiful words during courtship. Words are free. Words cost nothing in a moment. But after marriage, when the bills are due, when the children are sick, when the wife is exhausted and emotionally low and desperately needs to be held, that is when a man's real patience gets tested, not by what he says, but by what he does in the moment when nobody is performing for anyone. Let me give you a picture of this so it is not just an idea floating in the air. Imagine a man who told his fiancée before marriage, "I will always take care of you." Beautiful words, sincere even in the moment he said them. But after marriage, his wife goes through a season where she is tired, emotionally low, overwhelmed, and she needs help, not advice, not solutions, just help and presence. And in that moment, his actual emotional maturity, the maturity he never had to demonstrate before because the situation never demanded it, is tested for the first time. If all he ever had was romantic language and no real emotional depth underneath it, this is the moment the gap becomes visible. And she feels that gap before she can even explain it in words. She just knows something is missing. And often that missing thing was never built because it was never tested until now. There is something important woven through Islamic teaching that speaks directly into this. Good character is not measured by how someone behaves with strangers in public where everyone is watching. It is measured by how someone behaves with the people who live closest to them, the people who see them with no audience at all. The character a husband shows his wife in private, behind closed doors, when no one is watching and no one is praising him for it, that is the truest test of his faith and his manners, more than any performance he puts on for the outside world. A man can be admired by his friends, respected by his colleagues, even seen as pious by his community, and still be someone whose wife cries quietly at night. That contradiction should never exist, but it does far more often than people admit. So let's go deeper into the reasons, one at a time, slowly, because each one deserves its own space to breathe. The first reason, and one of the heaviest, is this: he starts taking his wife for granted. Before marriage, he feared losing her. That fear kept him alert, attentive, soft. After marriage, he feels somewhere in his subconscious that she is already his. The chase is over. The prize has been won. And so the urgency that once drove his effort quietly disappears. Before marriage, he made effort because effort was required to win something he did not yet have. After marriage, he assumes love will simply survive on its own, without watering, without tending, like a tree that grows wild and needs no gardener. Before marriage, he said beautiful words because words were how he proved his feelings. After marriage, he starts to think, she already knows I love her. I don't need to say it again, as if love spoken once is love proven forever. But here is what so many men do not understand, and I need you to really absorb this. A wife does not only need love sitting quietly in a man's heart. She needs to feel that love moving through his behavior, through his words, through his attention. She needs kind words, not as decoration, but as nourishment. She needs to be noticed. She needs appreciation, specific appreciation, not vague gratitude. She needs emotional connection, real conversation, not just shared logistics about groceries and bills. She needs respect, visible respect, the kind that does not disappear when his family is in the room. She needs time, his actual undivided attention, not the leftover minutes after his phone, his friends, and his exhaustion have taken their share. A husband might believe that providing financially is the whole job. He pays the bills, he brings the income, he thinks, what more does she want from me? But a wife can be financially provided for and still feel emotionally starving. Those two things are not the same currency, and you cannot pay an emotional debt with a financial deposit. Sit with that for a moment. Imagine this: a woman has everything she needs materially, a roof, food, security, and still she cries in the bathroom because nobody asked her how her day actually was. Not the version where she lists tasks, but the version where someone wants to know how her heart is doing. Here is a sentence I want lodged permanently in your memory. Love that is not expressed slowly begins to feel absent. It does not vanish overnight. It fades the way light fades at the end of a day you do not notice passing. Slowly, gradually, until one day you look up and it is simply dark, and you cannot remember exactly when the sun went down. Let me paint you a picture so familiar that some of you watching right now might feel your chest tighten. Before marriage, he used to notice the moment something was wrong. a change in her voice on the phone, and he would ask immediately, "What happened? Are you okay? Talk to me." After marriage, she can be sitting across from him, eyes filled with tears she is trying to hide, and he is scrolling, completely unaware, completely elsewhere, present in body but absent everywhere that matters. That contrast, that exact contrast, is what breaks something quiet inside a woman's heart, not all at once, but one small moment like that at a time, until eventually those small moments accumulate into a wall she did not mean to build, but built anyway, brick by silent brick. Here is another small but devastating shift. Before marriage, he used to ask, "Did you eat?" After marriage, the question quietly transforms into, "Is the food ready?" Read both of those sentences slowly and feel the difference between them. One is asking about her well-being. The other is asking about a task she is expected to perform. One treats her as a person being cared for. The other treats her as a function being managed. And when that shift happens, even if the husband does not consciously notice he has made it, the wife feels it instantly, because she has gone from being the beloved to being the responsible party, from being cherished to being assigned. There is a beautiful reminder rooted in the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who was known among his own household for his gentleness, his playfulness, his deep affection toward his family. He showed concern for the small details of his wife's days. He did not treat the home as a place where seriousness replaced softness. Marriage, in its truest spiritual form, was never meant to be the end of romance and the beginning of dry obligation. The contract of marriage is meant to increase mercy between two people, not to slowly drain it out of the relationship until only duty remains. Now let's move to the second reason, because pain has many roots and we need to trace each one honestly. Some husbands change because they are under a pressure they were never taught how to carry. Marriage, the moment it begins, opens the floodgates to an entirely new category of weight. Rent that did not exist as a shared concern before. Food for a household instead of just one person. Bills that multiply with every passing year. Family expenses that seem to grow no matter how carefully you plan. Children when they arrive who bring joy and exhaustion in the same breath. Career pressure that intensifies because now there are people depending on that career succeeding. Future planning that did not feel urgent before but now keeps a man awake at night. Parents' expectations that never fully disappear no matter how old he gets. Social pressure, the quiet comparison to other men, other homes, other achievements, and often the heaviest of all, financial comparison. The silent question that eats at a man in the dark: am I providing enough? Am I behind? Am I failing? Now here is something most men are never taught growing up, and it costs marriages dearly. Many men do not know how to express stress in words. Instead of saying, "I am tired," or "I am worried," or "I am scared I might not be enough," a man often becomes quiet instead, or irritable, or distant. He does not announce his struggle. He simply disappears into it, and the people around him are left to guess what changed and why. I want to be fair here, because fairness matters more than easy outrage. Stress is understandable. Every human being who carries responsibility will feel its weight at some point. But here is where the line must be drawn clearly. Stress is understandable. Hurting your wife because of that stress is not acceptable. A man can be struggling, genuinely, deeply struggling, and still owe his wife the basic dignity of not being made to feel like she is the source of his suffering or the target of his frustration. Here is a sentence worth pausing on. Pressure explains behavior. It does not excuse cruelty. Picture this with me. A husband comes home after a long, draining day. His wife has waited all day for the chance to finally talk to him, to share her thoughts, to feel connected again after hours apart. But instead of gentleness, he says sharply, "Do not disturb me right now." In his mind, he is simply exhausted. He needs a moment of quiet. Nothing more sinister than that. But in her mind, in her heart, she does not receive exhaustion. She receives rejection. She receives the message that she is a burden rather than a comfort, that her presence adds weight rather than relief. He may only be tired, but what lands in her heart is something far heavier than tiredness. What most wives are actually asking for, more often than men realize, is not unlimited money or a flawless provider. What many wives want more than anything else is partnership. If a husband says, even briefly, "I am under so much pressure right now and I need you beside me through this," most wives will rise to that moment and stand firmly with him, because that sentence invites her in rather than pushing her out. But when a husband instead becomes short-tempered, withdrawn and silent, his wife does not feel like a partner being trusted with his struggle. She feels like a stranger being blamed for a storm she did not create. There is something deeply rooted in the Islamic understanding of marriage here. Marriage was never designed to be a solo struggle. It is by its very nature teamwork. There is a well-known verse where Allah describes spouses as a source of comfort and tranquility for one another, created specifically so that two people would not have to face the difficulties of life alone. A husband was never meant to battle life by himself while his wife stands outside the fight, uninvited, unheard, untrusted with the weight he carries. And a husband was certainly never meant to turn the very person who is supposed to be his shelter into the place where he unloads his unspoken stress in the form of coldness or anger. Now let's move into the third reason, and this one is in many ways the quietest and the most overlooked. Some men were simply never trained to communicate emotionally. They were taught, often without anyone ever saying it directly, how to work hard, how to earn, how to solve problems out in the world. But almost nobody sat them down and taught them how to sit across from another human being and simply listen to that person's feelings without immediately trying to fix, defend, or explain. So when his wife says gently, "I feel lonely," or "I need your time," or "You do not talk to me the way you used to," or "I feel hurt," something happens inside many men that they themselves often do not fully understand. They hear those words not as an invitation, but as an accusation. They hear criticism where she intended connection. And so instead of leaning in, they pull back and they respond with defense instead of curiosity. "You are never happy. I do everything for you. What more do you want from me? You always complain. You think too much." Each of those responses, understandable as they might feel to him in the moment, lands on her like a closed door slamming shut exactly when she was trying to open one. Here is something I need you to really absorb. A wife sharing pain is not always an attack on her husband's character. Sometimes, far more often than men assume, she is doing the opposite of attacking. She is inviting him closer. She is handing him an open door and hoping he will walk through it instead of standing outside arguing about whether the door should exist at all. A sentence worth holding on to. When a wife shares pain, she is not always blaming you. Sometimes she is inviting you closer. Let me show you exactly how this plays out, because the pattern is almost universal. A wife says, "You do not spend time with me anymore." The husband responds, "I work all day for you," implying, "Can you not see my effort?" But here is the disconnect. She was never denying his hard work. She knows he works hard. She is grateful for it even. What she was actually expressing was a need for emotional closeness, a need that exists entirely separate from financial provision, a need that working hard, no matter how sincerely done, cannot fulfill on its own. This is one of the most important lessons buried inside this entire message. So listen closely. Men, generally speaking, are wired to solve problems quickly and efficiently. It is often how they show love, through action, through fixing. But wives far more often need something to happen first before any solution at all. They need emotional validation. They need to feel heard and understood before they need anything resolved. Skipping that first step and jumping straight to solutions can feel to her like being dismissed rather than helped. So what does a better response actually sound like? Instead of defending himself, a husband might simply say, I understand you miss me. I know I have been distant lately. You are right. I need to give you more of my time. Let us sit together tonight, just the two of us. Notice what that response does. It does not deny his effort elsewhere. It simply makes room for her feeling to exist without being argued against. There is a profound example in the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, engaged with people who came to him with emotional concerns. He listened. He did not dismiss feelings as overreaction. He did not rush to correct before he understood. There is deep wisdom in learning softness of speech, because sometimes one kind, gentle sentence has the power to heal a wound that no amount of money, no gift, and no grand gesture could ever reach. Now stay with me, because the fourth reason is one that touches something many people are afraid to even mention out loud. Many husbands change after marriage because of family interference and outside influence. Before marriage, a man might promise with full sincerity in that moment, I will always support you. I will not let anyone hurt you. You will be my priority. I will balance everything fairly. And he believes those words completely when he says them, because at that point, the conflicts they are meant to address have not yet appeared. But after marriage, real family tension begins. Many men become confused, caught between two loyalties they were never taught how to balance. He may fear upsetting his parents, a fear rooted in genuine love and respect for them. He may avoid taking a clear stand, hoping the discomfort will simply pass on its own. He may stay silent in moments when his wife is disrespected in front of him, telling himself he is keeping peace, when in reality he is simply avoiding conflict. He may, without realizing the unfairness of it, expect his wife to adjust endlessly every single time, as if her patience were an unlimited resource. He may quietly believe that patience from her means she should simply accept everything, no matter how it makes her feel. I want to be very careful and precise here, because this point requires real nuance. Respecting parents is an immense and serious responsibility within Islamic teaching, one that is emphasized again and again. But respect for parents was never meant to come at the cost of injustice toward a wife. A husband carries duties toward his parents, genuine, weighty duties, and he carries duties toward his wife, equally genuine, equally weighty. One set of obligations does not erase or override the other. Justice in Islam is not selective. It does not bend simply because the people involved are family. Here is a sentence I want you to carry with you. A good husband does not make his wife fight for the respect he should have protected in the first place. Picture this scenario, because so many wives watching right now will recognize it instantly. A relative says something cutting, something disrespectful directly to the wife in front of her husband, and instead of stepping in, instead of defending her with calm firmness, he simply says, just ignore it. Again and again. Every time it happens, over months, over years, this repeated silence teaches her something painful. She begins to feel that he is loving toward her only in private, behind closed doors, but weak, absent, unwilling to stand for her the moment it requires any discomfort in public. And sometimes it goes even further than passive silence. Sometimes relatives actively whisper damaging ideas into a husband's ear. Do not listen to your wife too much. After marriage, men start getting controlled by their wives. Keep her in her place. Do not give her too much freedom. These ideas are not wisdom, they are poison disguised as advice, and they can quietly corrode a marriage from the outside, one comment at a time, until a husband who once cherished his wife begins treating affection itself as a weakness to guard against. The Islamic understanding of family life was never built on oppression of anyone, wife or otherwise. It was built on justice, mercy, and clearly defined responsibility. A husband is called to be respectful and dutiful toward his parents, and he is equally called to be fair, protective, and just toward his wife. Choosing one does not require abandoning the other. A man strong enough to honor both is the kind of man both his mother and his wife can be proud of. Now, the fifth reason, and this one might be the most quietly devastating of them all. Some husbands fall into the belief that marriage itself marks the finish line of effort. Before marriage, the effort exists because there is something to win, someone to convince, a future to secure. The moment the marriage is sealed, in the mind of some men, the goal has been achieved, and so the striving simply stops. After marriage, they stop dating their wife emotionally, even while still living beside her physically. They stop planning small, meaningful moments together. They stop offering compliments that once came so naturally. They stop asking how she truly feels beneath the surface, beneath the logistics of daily life. They stop making her feel chosen, actively, deliberately chosen again and again. They stop giving the kind of focused attention that once made her feel like the most important person in any room. Here is something essential to understand. The marriage contract is not the conclusion of love. It is the beginning of a deeper responsibility that love now carries. Before marriage, love often feels exciting precisely because of distance, longing, uncertainty, the thrill of not yet having fully arrived. After marriage, love requires something entirely different. It requires discipline, it requires patience, it requires sacrifice, it requires daily, ongoing care, the kind that does not come from excitement but from intention. A sentence worth holding close. Marriage does not survive on the love you showed before the contract was signed. It survives on the love you continue to show after. Imagine this. Before marriage, he remembered small dates, small details, things she mentioned once in passing months earlier. After marriage, he forgets even the simplest forms of appreciation, the kind that cost him nothing but a moment of thoughtfulness. And here is the important truth beneath this. She is rarely asking for a grand surprise every single day. What she is asking for, quietly, persistently, is simply to feel that she still matters, that she has not become invisible furniture in her own home. Effort after marriage does not need to be elaborate to be meaningful. A kind message sent in the middle of an ordinary day, a cup of tea shared together in silence that still feels warm, a short walk side by side, a soft, unhurried conversation with no agenda, a genuine compliment, helping with a task without being asked twice, listening fully with the phone face down and out of reach, saying thank you sincerely for things that have become routine, saying sorry without excuses attached when sorry is actually owed. There is a beautiful spiritual truth here worth sitting with. The best homes are rarely perfect homes. They are homes where mercy is renewed again and again, where two imperfect people choose repeatedly to extend grace to one another rather than keeping score of every failure. Now, the sixth reason, and this one requires a kind of honesty that not every man is ready to hear. Some men change after marriage because marriage for them becomes intertwined with a sense of power. They begin to think quietly, sometimes without even fully realizing it. I am the husband, so I am always right. She must listen to me. My decision is final simply because it is mine. If I apologize, I will appear weak in her eyes or in the eyes of others. If I show too much love, she might take advantage of that softness. If I help around the home, people might say I have become controlled by my wife. This kind of thinking, wherever it takes root, slowly poisons emotional closeness between two people. Being a husband was never meant to be about control. It is meant to be about leadership carried with mercy, not leadership enforced through fear. Here is something worth deeply internalizing. A strong man is not the one whose wife is afraid of him. A strong man is the one whose wife feels completely safe beside him, safe enough to disagree, safe enough to be fully herself. A sentence to remember: a wife should respect her husband. She should never have to fear him. Picture this moment. A wife is trying gently to explain her perspective on something that matters to her. And instead of listening, the husband shuts the conversation down entirely. Do not argue with me. Over time, after enough moments like this one repeat themselves, she simply stops trying to speak at all. And here is the tragic irony hidden inside this pattern. He may walk away believing he has won respect through firmness. In reality, what he has actually built brick by brick is distance. The kind of distance that eventually feels impossible to close. The example of the Prophet, peace be upon him, stands directly opposed to this pattern of ego-driven leadership. He was known for profound humility, even while holding immense authority and responsibility. He did not build his household upon ego or fear. He built it upon mercy, gentleness, and unwavering justice, even within his own home, especially within his own home. Now, the seventh reason, and this one explains something many wives have felt but struggled to articulate clearly. Before marriage, a person can hide an enormous amount about themselves. Anger issues that never surface during a few hours together each week. A deep attachment to the phone that simply was not visible during short, curated meetings. Laziness that limited contact successfully concealed. Emotional coldness that simply had no opportunity to show itself. Irresponsibility that never had to be tested. Spending habits that were never put under real pressure. Old flirtatious tendencies that quietly continue even in marriage. Harsh language that was carefully restrained during courtship. A lack of cleanliness or discipline that limited proximity, hid completely. An unhealthy attachment to friends or distractions that consumed hours nobody else witnessed. A lack of seriousness about faith and spiritual responsibility that never came up in conversation. After marriage, all of these things become visible simply because now the wife lives with him daily, in every mood, in every season, in every version of him that exists. Here is the deeper truth underneath this entire reason. A wife may say, he changed. But sometimes the more accurate truth is this: he did not change at all. She is simply seeing the complete version of him now. The version that courtship, by its very limited nature, was never able to fully reveal. A sentence worth remembering: marriage does not create every problem in a relationship. Sometimes it simply exposes what courtship was successfully hiding all along. Consider this. Before marriage, he seemed remarkably calm. almost effortlessly so. But of course he seemed calm. Their meetings were brief, infrequent, carefully managed. After marriage, she sees an entirely different reality. His anger surfacing when food is delayed, when money is tight, when family pressure builds. Or consider this. Before marriage, he would say, simply, I am busy. After marriage, she comes to realize that hours are disappearing into his phone, into time with friends, into games, while almost none of that same energy is ever directed toward emotional connection with her. Here is the balance that must be held carefully. Every human being carries flaws. That alone is not the crisis. The real crisis begins only when someone refuses to acknowledge those flaws, refuses to grow, refuses to even attempt change once the flaw has been named clearly and lovingly. Marriage in its truest spiritual sense is meant to be a space for mutual growth. A husband and wife are meant to help one another become not only better partners to each other, but better human beings altogether, gently correcting one another, patiently encouraging one another, never tearing one another down in the process. Now the eighth reason, and this one deserves to be heard slowly, because it carries a grief that is rarely spoken about out loud. Some husbands change, or rather, some husbands fail to notice change because they simply do not see the full weight their wife is carrying. A wife may have left her own family home behind, an enormous, often underestimated sacrifice on its own. She may have had to adjust to an entirely new household, new rhythms, new expectations, often within someone else's established system. She may have changed her entire daily routine to accommodate a life that was not originally hers. She may carry the physical and emotional weight of pregnancy, childbirth, the relentless demands of raising children, alongside housework, alongside her own private emotions that rarely get acknowledged. She may tolerate criticism silently again and again, simply to preserve peace in the home. She may have quietly set aside her own dreams, her own ambitions in service of the family's well-being. She may actively support her husband's career, his goals, his growth, often at the expense of her own. And she may hide her own pain repeatedly, simply to keep the household feeling calm and stable for everyone else. But if a husband does not see these sacrifices clearly, does not acknowledge them, does not name them with gratitude, she begins to feel a particular kind of invisible exhaustion that is far heavier than ordinary tiredness. A sentence worth sitting with for a long moment. A wife does not become tired only from the work itself. She becomes tired when that work goes completely unseen. Imagine this moment because it cuts deeper than it first appears. A husband asks casually, almost carelessly, "What do you even do all day?" That single sentence has the power to break something in a woman, not because the question itself is inherently cruel, but because it reveals that he has no real awareness of the invisible mental load she carries every single hour of every single day. Let me describe that mental load clearly, because naming it matters. Remembering what groceries are needed before anyone runs out. Planning and managing meals day after day without applause, caring for children's physical needs and emotional needs simultaneously, managing family events and obligations that never seem to end, maintaining relationships with extended family on both sides, quietly tracking bills and financial obligations in the back of her mind, managing the entire emotional atmosphere of the household, often without anyone noticing she is doing it at all, planning silently, constantly, the small details that keep an entire home functioning smoothly. Gratitude, genuine and specific gratitude, is a deeply emphasized part of good character within Islamic teaching. A husband expressing thanks for both the visible efforts of his wife And the invisible ones, the ones nobody else will ever see or acknowledge, is not a small gesture. It is one of the most meaningful forms of love a man can offer. Now, before we move into solutions, I want to pause here and speak directly to the wives listening, because fairness has to flow in both directions or this message becomes incomplete. Not every husband who has changed has stopped loving his wife. Sometimes he is genuinely stressed in ways he cannot articulate. Sometimes he is afraid of failing, afraid of not being enough, afraid in ways pride will not allow him to admit out loud. Sometimes he feels an immense, almost suffocating pressure to provide, a pressure that quietly reshapes his personality without his full awareness. Sometimes he simply does not know how to communicate because nobody ever taught him the language of emotional honesty. Sometimes he is carrying silent worries that have nothing to do with the marriage at all, yet still spill over into it. Sometimes he too needs appreciation, needs to be told he matters, needs to be seen for his effort rather than only criticized for his shortcomings. And sometimes he is emotionally weak in ways he himself does not fully understand, let alone know how to express. A wife should not immediately assume the very worst about every change she notices. Instead, she is wise to observe patterns over time, to communicate calmly rather than reactively, and to choose the right moment to speak rather than the moment of highest emotional intensity. Some practical wisdom here, gently offered. Speak clearly, not only emotionally, so your message can actually be received. Choose a calm moment, not the heat of an argument, to raise something important. Tell him specifically what you need, rather than expecting him to guess it. Appreciate his efforts openly, even the ones that feel small, because acknowledgement fuels continued effort. Avoid comparing him to other husbands, since comparison wounds rather than motivates. Never attack his sense of manhood, even in anger, because that wound rarely heals cleanly. Make sincere prayer for your marriage consistently, quietly, faithfully. Set healthy boundaries where they are genuinely needed without guilt, and seek wise, trusted counsel if a situation begins to feel like more than ordinary marital friction. A sentence worth remembering. A husband may be wrong in his behavior, but healing begins the moment both hearts stop fighting to win and start trying sincerely to understand. And I must say this clearly, because silence in the wrong situation is not patience, it is danger. If there is abuse of any kind, constant humiliation, violence, infidelity, or serious emotional harm, then silence is never the right response. Seek help immediately from trusted family members, from knowledgeable scholars, from qualified counselors, or from appropriate authorities. Your safety and your dignity are not negotiable under any circumstance for any reason. Now, husbands, this part is for you, and I need you to listen as closely as you have listened to anything in this entire message, because what I am about to share could change the entire trajectory of your marriage if you actually apply it, starting today, not someday, not when you feel like it, but today. First, notice your wife's emotional change before it becomes permanent distance. If she talks less than she used to, smiles less, asks for less, expects less from you than she once did, do not ignore that shift, because silence from a wife is rarely peace. It is often exhaustion, wearing peace as a disguise. Ask her gently, with real curiosity, not defensiveness. Have I changed? Do you feel alone even when I am here with you? What do you miss about who we used to be together? How can I become better for you, specifically starting now? Second, retire the phrase, "I provide, what else do you want from me?" Provision matters deeply. It is not small. It is not nothing. But a marriage cannot survive on provision alone. A wife also needs love that is expressed, not just felt internally. She needs mercy, not management. She needs respect that holds steady in public and in private. She needs softness even from a strong man, perhaps especially from a strong man. She needs protection, not control. She needs your time, your loyalty, and a deep, consistent sense of emotional safety beside you. Third, learn to apologize without letting ego stand in the way. Practice saying plainly, I know I hurt you. I did not fully realize how distant I had become. I want to fix this sincerely, not just say I will. I will not only promise change, I will show it to you consistently over time. Fourth, bring back the small daily expressions of love that somehow got lost along the way. Give her your time fully, not distracted leftovers. Listen without your phone anywhere in reach. Thank her specifically for things she does that have quietly become invisible to you. Help her without being asked twice. Speak softly even when you are tired. Protect her respect fiercely, especially in front of others. Pray together when you can. Make her laugh genuinely, the way you once did so easily. Ask about her heart, not only about the housework that needs doing. Fifth, and this is essential, be consistent. One good day, one good gesture, one heartfelt apology is simply not enough to undo years of accumulated disappointment. A wife who has been hurt repeatedly does not heal from a single apology. She heals slowly, carefully, through repeated proof that the change is real and lasting. A sentence to carry with you long after this message ends. A wife who has been disappointed many times does not heal from one apology. She heals from repeated proof. As we come toward the end of this hour together, I want you to imagine something with me, clearly, vividly. Imagine the very first day you met the person you eventually married. Think about how much effort you put in, how much attention you paid to every small detail, how desperately you wanted to be chosen, to be loved, to be enough in their eyes. Now imagine with complete honesty whether that same level of effort exists today or whether it quietly faded somewhere along the way without you ever consciously deciding to let it go. A husband should never become a stranger to the very woman who once trusted him completely with her future. The woman who walked into his life with open hands and full trust should never have to spend her married years quietly missing the man he used to be, grieving someone who is still physically present but emotionally gone. Marriage was never meant to be merely about two people living under the same roof. It is about two people growing together year after year through every season, easy and difficult alike. It is about protecting one another fiercely, consistently. It is about becoming a source of peace for each other, especially when the world outside offers none. It is about extending mercy precisely when life becomes hardest, not withholding it until things improve. It is about choosing each other deliberately, again and again, not just once at the altar, but daily for the rest of your lives together. To every husband listening right now, do not wait until your wife becomes silent before you finally pay attention. Do not wait until she stops expecting anything from you at all, because that silence is far more dangerous than any argument could ever be. Do not wait until her heart grows tired in ways she can no longer hide. Do not wait until she says, I am fine, while everything in her has already quietly moved somewhere far away from you emotionally. Be the husband who provides and protects, yes, absolutely, but also be the husband who listens, who understands, who appreciates, and who loves with consistent, deliberate mercy every single day, not only on the days it feels convenient. Here is the final truth I want to leave with you before we close this hour together. A husband does not lose his wife only on the day she physically walks out the door. Sometimes far more quietly, far more tragically, he loses her slowly over months and years. The moment he stops being the man who made her feel genuinely loved, completely safe, and deeply valued. Before we close, I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it in the comments, honestly, without fear of judgment, because this space exists for healing, not shame. What is the situation you are walking through right now? Are you the wife who feels she is missing the man she married? Or are you the husband who knows somewhere honest inside yourself that you have drifted and you want to find your way back? Share your story in as much or as little detail as feels right to you, because somewhere, someone else reading your words tonight will feel less alone because you were brave enough to write them. And if you have found healing already, if you have walked through this exact pain and come out the other side stronger, please share that too, because hope, real lived hope, helps more people than advice ever could. If this message reached something true inside you today, do not let it end here, in this moment, only to be forgotten by tomorrow. Apply even one part of what you heard starting today, because the difference between a marriage that heals and a marriage that quietly fades apart so often comes down to whether someone was willing to act on what they already knew rather than simply nodding along and changing nothing. May your home become a place of mercy rather than distance. May your marriage grow rather than merely survive. May you find, both of you, the version of each other that first made you believe love like this was even possible.